don't have to worry about his internal organs being reshaped. Anyway, enough of the aggressiveness.
I don't recall a rookie coming in and making this big of an impact this quick in a very long time.
I saw this on Instagram and I couldn't believe it. For the life of me, I couldn't believe it.
We're going to have to switch from paying safeties to paying corners. Which player is the most valuable to the current 53? Welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks Rookie Watch podcast. And tonight we're going to be talking post-Cardinals performances for our rookies, where there were some absolutely stellar ones. We're going to talk a little bit about what we think is going to happen with the next draft and which positions we might need to add a rookie or two. And we're going to talk a little bit about who is becoming a really, really valuable player on our roster from our rookie draft class from last year. So, James, how you doing, pal? You all good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Got that winning feeling. Looking forward to this week. Another good display from our rookies. Yeah, just ridiculous. Again, continuing to impress me even more every week. Always look forward to coming on and doing Rookie Watch when we've got this much talented rookies in our team. So yeah, I'm good, mate.
Good. And what about you, Pez?
I'm good, mate. Good. Looking forward to this Browns game to see how it goes down. Looking forward to the throwback. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, that Browns team starting to look a little bit depleted going into this game. So, not quite sure if we'll see the Browns with as much resistance as they've shown to other teams in recent times. But we'll see what our rookies can do in that game. So we're going to very quickly talk now about the performance against the Cards. We saw some really, really big plays from the likes of Bobo and JSN. We saw a good look at Oluwatimi as well, with Evan Brown being out for the whole game. And obviously, as we say every week now, another Devon Witherspoon masterclass. And he looks every bit like one of the best corners in the league at this point in his first year. So, Pez, we'll go to you first tonight, pal. Which rookie performance against the Cards was the most sort of exciting and satisfying for you?
It's a hard one, this. It is a hard one. For me, well, you know what? I'll do it by I'm wearing his number.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll just do it because I'm wearing the man's number. JSN. I enjoyed that. It's what we've been saying we wanted to see. It's starting to click. In the main pod, I said to James, we were talking about Gino, and I said all his interceptions have come to either JSN. His interceptions have come on passes to JSN or Bobo. Now, I just think, to me, that screams he doesn't have the chemistry with them players. I don't care what the media team tries and sparks up in pre-season to get us all jazzed up and excited. He clearly doesn't have that chemistry, because some of them interceptions, yeah, fair enough. He had that one on DK where there's a confusion with the route or whatever. Yeah, fair enough. But I just think when he threw some of them, if it was Tyler or DK in them situations, I don't think they happen. You know what I mean? So to see JSN have such a good game this game with DK out, where the emphasis, we said it going into the game, is more about him. They clearly are trying to make it a point, but they actually did it right this time. They used him correctly. You said it, Mitch, yourself. It was the deep ball, wasn't it? And you were saying it's not kind of his bag, but what he did this game was his bag. Actually successfully, with Bobo lead blocking, pulled off a screen. Now, watch it 15 times and realise that's what you do to do a screen with his team, and let's do it again and again and again and beat the horse until teams figure out how to stop it and then change it. But overall, really impressed. I think he's going to build on that and have another big game this next game coming. But yeah, I've got to go with JSN.
Yeah, I like that choice, and I think the thing about that game is it was a bit of a breakout game. They're not gaudy numbers. I think it was 60 odd yards and a touchdown for JSN, but he actually had 2 drops. I think they were difficult catches. One of them was a diving one. One of them was slightly sort of outside. It was outside the numbers and a quick window to catch in. But if he'd taken those, he'd be almost up at 100 yards touchdown in a game where we really hoped we'd see him get more of the ball. So. It was nearly even better than that. And actually, funnily enough, when I was watching the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast, the American podcast, this week, when they were doing their build-up to this game, I put in the comments, Geno Smith to hit 75% pass completion or above, JSN to have a touchdown and 100 yards. And the guy that runs that podcast, Robert, actually went and put the bet on afterwards. Geno finished the game on exactly 75%. JSN got his touchdown, and the only thing left to tick off for his bet to come in was the 100 yards. So it nearly happened. And I think the 75% completion mark for Geno is actually, and it wasn't a good game for Geno either. Let's put that out there. Wasn't a good game for Geno. It was okay. It wasn't good. If JSN is involved in the game and receiving the ball in the areas he wants to receive the ball in, Geno will have a highly accurate game with shorter throws that then get some yard after the catch. So we started to see what JSN being involved in his sort of to his strengths gives to the entire team, I think.
Just what you said about Geno, if you listen to the start of the main pod, Mitch, I took James on I held his hand. We went into Pez's rabbit hole and we opened the lid of the box. We jumped out of it into the weird and wonderful world of why Geno might not be performing as well as he was. I would have loved you to have been there because you would have pulled your face where, what is this fucking guy talking about?
I pull that face a lot, to be fair.
But give it a listen, and if he plays like a donkey against the Browns, we can revisit it in the next main pod. And I'd love to see if you think I might have a bit of a thing on the whole Geno situation. Just as a little side note for you, because you weren't unfortunately there with us.
Yeah, I wasn't there this week. I will give it a listen. I always listen when I'm not involved on the main pod, so I will definitely give that a listen. But we'll move it on to James's. Sorry, there's a mosquito flying around. I was trying to swat the mosquito. James, who is your pick for the player, the rookie player in that game that you enjoyed the most?
Devin Witherspoon, easy. Just ridiculous. Nearly killed a man, as he always does. That was one of his best hits.
Only one.
But then he should have had a sack and he should have had an interception, which people forget as well from the game. So if he'd have had that, the stat line would have just been ridiculous again. I don't recall a rookie coming in and making this big of an impact this quick in a very long time. You can compare. He's probably making more of an impact quicker than even your Shermans did, and it was only really Thomas that with Earl being the first round pick, he came in straight away and was balling pretty much straight away. But even he was on special teams and stuff like that. Witherspoon's not even on special. He's just out there, 3 down cornerback, locking it down all the time. Ridiculous.
Earl, just to jump in with that comment, you are completely right. Earl became a beast. There was a lot of coaching along the way with Earl. Not saying Witherspoon's perfect, but he's pretty perfect.
Yeah. He's ready to go. Yeah,
he's on like multiple murder charges after a couple of weeks playing games. Like,
can either of you remember a player coming into the league through the draft system who sort of halfway into a season was ranked the number one statistically or number one ranked on PFF at their position in their rookie year? And I mean sort of out and out first, not just on a certain stat line, because currently Devin Witherspoon is PFF's top ranked corner. 7 games into the season, one of which he missed, one of which was bye week. So he's had 2 games less than a lot of players, or 1 game less than a lot of players. currently sat top. I don't think we've ever had a lineman top. We've never had an edge rusher or a lineman
The
or
only
a
one that I
wide
could
receiver.
think of maybe recently is one that we might see this week. Maybe Myles Garrett. Other than that, I'm thinking quarterbacks wise, Mahomes. But even I
I
don't
don't
know.
think he went top first year, but he was
No.
right up there in competition. It's madness when you think about it, because it's really hard. It's really hard to. It certainly hasn't happened at corner, because for as good as Sauce Gardner's first year was, he was only top in the field of rookies, not for the league. So honestly, I think he's trailblazing. I think
Tariq,
he's one of
probably Tariq last season was probably pretty close, but I think Devon's making more of an impact already.
Even then, Tariq's was a really good rookie year, but he was still a top 10 corner, not a top 2-3 candidate. At the moment, he's right. I've never known it, honestly. No. It's nuts. So one guy I want to shout out a little bit is Oluwatimi. He's a guy that's known for being a good run blocker, and our run game didn't get massively sort of entrenched in this game. We didn't sort of get it running at its full potential. But he had to do a lot of the stuff that he's not known for. The pass, and didn't give up any sacks or pressures in that game. We kept Gino relatively clean. The big sack he took was off that one edge where it was a completely busted scheme, and we had a man over, and Gino ran straight into it, and it looked a lot worse than it potentially should have done. But there was no pressure up the gut in that game at all, and that for me filled me with loads of confidence in Oluwatimi, because the stuff he was doing really well at in that game was the stuff that was supposed to be his weakness. And then factor in no flags, didn't hear his name called a single time. You wouldn't have known he was playing.
No. That's
a fantastic first start for Oluwatimi in this league.
Yeah, totally agree.
I've just been looking at something.
Yeah, I knew this was coming. Yeah.
What shocked me a little bit, and it's to do with, I saw this on Instagram and I couldn't believe it. For the life of me, I couldn't believe it. I don't watch the Eagles unless it's the highlights or they're on Red Zone, so I don't truly know how good Jalen Carter is actually doing. But someone put Devon Witherspoon's having such a great start to the year. He's just picked to the spot by Jalen Carter for the favourite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I'm only going off his stats of Sleeper, but he had 2 forced fumbles in one game. He's had 3.5 sacks. His highest tackles in a game was against the Rams, and that was 4. What has that guy actually done compared to Devon Witherspoon, who's killing men on the field, literally doing everything he possibly could? And you look at it, Jalen Carter's still the favourite, still odds-on favourite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year when you come to betting. You go into the Defensive Player of the Year, because I thought, interesting, let's see if Witherspoon's on there, because at the end of the day, as Mitch said, PFF got him graded best corner in the league, not just as a rookie. Jalen Carter's on that list.
People aren't going to vote for Carter.
Not on that list. Do you know who else is on that list who's literally done jack shit? Because I checked his stat line. Will Anderson. Will Anderson's closer to Witherspoon.
Is a bigger threat than Jalen Carter. I'll tell you why.
He's done nothing.
Statistically, it's voted for, and people won't forget why Jalen Carter tanks in terms of his draft projection. There was a lot of character concerns there. There's a lot of unsavory stuff there. And when it comes to voting for people, and you've got a choice between a guy with a squeaky clean record like Witherspoon, who has that positive energy and that juice on defense, like it's just an infinitely more likable character. There is some East Coast, West Coast bias there, and I think if the Philadelphia Eagles go to the Super Bowl and he has a good game, there'll be some recency bias. He'll be right front center stage. But I do think if you put the NFL population, you put those people in front of people, those three candidates, I think you'll see Jalen Carter come third based off people's opinion of him as a personality. I think he's lost a lot of popularity off that. He'll have a job on his hands to win over the NFL. Some players like Aaron Donald kind of transcend their own fan base because they're seen as a generational player. There are people that support other teams that will tune in to watch Aaron Donald wreck a game. Jalen Carter can get to that stage, but in order for other franchises to really root for him, he needs to overcome those character concerns and the things that he's done by performing and ironing out those things. So for that reason, I don't think people vote for him for Defensive Rookie of the Year, personally.
Spoon carries on the way he's going. He's won it, like hands down. I think it's only going to take him a good game against the Browns. He will cement it, and I think potentially lock it in if he puts a show on against the Ravens. I think that, for me, will solidify if he manages to shut down Lamar Jackson, because I think Lamar's going to have a really good game this week. If he manages to do that, I think that's it then. I think that's game over for everyone.
I think you're right in that there'll be some moments in the year where he really solidifies his challenge for that. I think it'll be a different game. I think the big thing he did was showing out on primetime against the Giants in front of the nation on a night when only one game was on telly. And I think we'll see that again on Thanksgiving when we play the 49ers. People will be tuned in on Thanksgiving to watch that game. And if he balls out in that game, if he shows out on that in that game on national TV again, that'll be two primetime games in a row where he's shown the nation exactly who he is. So I think that's the big billboard for him to state his case.
Purdy's not going to have to worry about his arm in that game. He's going to have to worry about his internal organs being reshaped. Anyway, enough of the aggressiveness.
We'll move on.
Because he's going to hit him, James. What are you on about? You're disgusting, idiot.
It'll be Brock Purdy's lucky day by the sounds of it.
An adult podcast. Right, so we're going to move on to section 2. We're going to do something a little bit differently. So last week we talked about redrafting potentially our first 3 rookies that we picked last year. And the options given to redraft were the 5 following players with each pick. This week we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to look ahead to next year's draft and which positional groups we could potentially pick up to bolster our roster. But I'm going to restrict James and Pez to picking a position in the same round we picked that same position last year. So, for example, they could say that we might pick another corner with our first round pick, or another wide receiver with our first round pick, or an edge or a running back in round 2. Maybe they'll say that we might pick another defensive back or safety at the end of the draft, like we took Jerrick Reed last year. So we'll go over to James first. From the positions we picked last year, those positional groups, which one do you think we're most likely to double dip and go back and get another player to supplement our roster? Which rookie might be getting a running partner next year in the same position?
I think there's more obvious ones than not. So I'll go with a bit of a wild card one. I'll say safety. I look at you roll your eyes, Mr. Pez there, but
let me took my one.
Oh
you
well,
took it.
Oh well, I do apologise then. I look at safety and I think Jerrick Reed isn't quite ready at this moment in time. But then I look at the contract situation of Diggs. He's only contracted through next season, so he's got one more year left at the point of next year's draft, and so he's past that 30 barrier. Obviously, he's had his injury in the past. Will they want to, or will they be able to afford to re-sign him? And then you've got the whole thing with Jamal, potentially his future a little bit up in the air. Is he, will they play more of an outside linebacker? But you just don't know really with Jamal what the plan is there. And we love the safety. We value the safety. We always kind of double dip and draft safeties and pay trade for Jamal Adams is a big sort of statement as to how much they value the safety position. So I have a feeling that safety could potentially be a bigger need than people might. Because at this moment in time, it feels like, we've got Condre Diggs, we've got Jamal Adams, safety's fine, but come draft time next season, that might change a little bit. That outlook, that sort of narrative around the safety position might change a little bit. So I will say safety.
Good shout. I think it's a really good shout. I mean, how long did we give to Julian Love? That was was that a 2-year? I feel like that was 2.
I think it was.
I think so.
I think it was 2. So we've got that there as well. Jamal Adams is younger than people think he is. He was young when he was drafted. He's into his second contract in the league. Jamal Adams, big money. I think there's an interesting thing there, James. I think we'll start seeing safeties drafted every year, possibly multiple. And the reason for that is that the Seahawks are actually one of 3 teams in the league that split their cap 50-50 on offense and defense. When you look at the Miami Dolphins are 70% of their cap spent on offense compared to defense, at the complete opposite end of the scale. So with Devin Witherspoon, a first-round pick, and with Tariq Woolen, who is going to need a serious extension when we get to the table with him, we're going to have to switch from paying safeties to paying corners, because if we start paying corners and safeties at the same level that we're paying safeties now, we're not going to have money for D-line. So I think we'll shift to drafting lots of safeties and try and keep good safeties on rookie deals to supplement our corners. So I think safety is a great shout, because they won't be able to renew Adams, keep Diggs on the money he's on, and pay 2 corners when we get to that point. So you're right, that's on the horizon, and I think drafting safeties now as a priority is going to be a good part of the plan.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mr. Pez? Which position do you think we'll double dip on the year after?
Just frantically looking to pivot, because I was confident James would not go for safety down right at the freaking bottom of the list.
I can go first if you want.
No, I will. Well, luckily, because I'm a professional, I still have your 2024 draft class database on my tabs. So I was just having a quick nosy at things. But thinking about it, if I'm going to look at another positional group where I wanted to go really out there and say we're going to shock everyone and do another wide receiver in the first round, that's not going to happen because we don't have 2 first rounds. They won't do it. They only did that because JSN's elite and they had the 2 first rounds. So I'm going to go. I'm going to play it a bit safe. I could see a 4th. I'll do it 2-2. I'm going to cheat and do 2 because James robbed my thing and I'm bitter about it. The 4th round defensive tackle and the 5th round defensive end. They seem to do that every single year.
You are right that we've consistently taken defensive linemen around there. That is a habit.
Yeah, I reckon I'm going to go with that, because I was going to do the edge in the second, because I feel like that's a common theme. Frank Clark, Derek Hall, that is a very common theme with the Seahawks now, is getting that edge high. But no, I'm going to go with the middle rounds. I reckon that defensive tackle, defensive end in the middle rounds is also, they love to double dip in that department. Maybe not now because they seem to have a nice little rotation crop of D linemen, but I don't think in this league you can ever have enough. So I just think that's something they always do.
Okay, well, I like it. I think that's definitely something the Seahawks will consider doing. I think defensive line depth is something they'll do in this draft coming up. So I think we'll see Mike Morris accompanied by another young defensive lineman in that room. And I don't have a problem with it. I think Miles Adams has had very limited snaps this year. We've got Mario Edwards has done a fantastic job in our D-line, and so has Jaron Reed. But they're obviously older players. There needs to be some fresh blood behind them. So I think that's definitely something they'll do. I think the really obvious one that stares you in the face there is a 7th round running back. We've done that year after year after year. It's something we habitually do. So I think that will definitely happen.
You are very true, and you are right before I say what I'm going to say. But I was going to be controversial and actually mention this and say we're going to surprise everyone and not actually draft a running back and only focus on undrafted, because if Kenny McIntosh actually outproduces the draft capital, what we all think he will do, depending on the injury. Charbonnet develops
3.
more, Ken, and then you got DJ, as we talked about in the main pod. He's kind of like solidified himself as the returns guy. I personally really like that, but he's also a good functional rotational piece. There's 4 really solid guys there. You don't need to waste a draft pick. I know a 7th isn't a draft pick. It's like a hit and hope type thing.
Well, this is exactly why I designed this question, because I wanted us to discuss the different positional groups and work out where we're stacked with young talent and where we might go in and think we could do with a bit more on our roster. So the position that I'm going to say is probably edge, because I'm 50-50 on whether we are likely to get DT back. I think they'll have a cap on where they want to go with how much money they'll offer him. And they potentially will see him as someone that they could get a pick back for if they tender him and just give him a ceiling on what they'll pay. So realistically, I could see DT moving on potentially and us picking up another edge rusher. And there are some serious ones in this draft that are going to fall down. So there could be some serious edge rushers in the second round again. And let's face it, we're not regretting Boye Maffei's pickup at this point in time. So could see that happening. Well, cheers, boys. That was good. That was an interesting insight. So section 3, we'll move on. And the question is going to go out to James first this time, because I've gone to Pez first twice. And the question for you, James, is going to be, which rookie is now the most valuable on our current roster outside of our first round picks? So you can't take Witherspoon, you can't take JSN. Looking at that class from last draft, which player is the most valuable to the current 53?
Some close ones. Players that haven't quite done enough yet for me that I want to say. So I think I'll play it smart. I'll say Anthony Bradford. I think there's been a lot of injuries on the offensive line, and like you say, with Phil Haynes not suiting up in certain games, and when he has suited up in games, he's come out of games because he's picked up knocks and stuff like that. So Bradford's seen quite a lot of the field, a bit more than Oluwatimi. I know Oluwatimi had the Cardinals game, but I've been really impressed with Bradford when he's came in, as we've spoken about on this rookie watch before. And I think if he wasn't there, if they didn't have that little depth piece at right guard, I think with the injuries that we've had at sort of bookend with Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, if we had to play Stone Forsyth, Jake Kerr, and then I don't even know who we've got out of practice squad at guard, but someone from the practice squad that had to be elevated to play guard, I think you could have seen the entire offensive line just crumble. But I think Bradford's come in and allowed it not to crumble as much as Forsyth and Kern have contributed to that as well on the outside. I think in that interior, having a quality young player in Bradford who's not the finished article yet, obviously, but is good enough to plug in and play better than a practice squad elevation guy. If you didn't have him, I think he's allowed it to just kind of stay stable and stay okay and keep their necks above water on offensive line. So if you're talking about importance, I think he has potentially stopped the offensive line from completely crumbling. So I will say Bradford.
Yeah, good choice. I like that one. Pez, do you have a name in mind that you think has really become a permanent fixture in our roster in their first year? Someone who's become very valuable
outside of the first round. To be quite honest, it's quite interesting because when you do look at the list, there's a few I like Oluwatimi. He's done some nice things. Mm-hmm. I can't then preach about him too much because it's more what I've heard and read, because like I admit, I'm not a big O-line guy. I was going to go Anthony Bradford because he's been
called on a lot already.
Yeah. But if I look at this list, do you know the funny thing is, I look at this list and I look at outside of the first round, because I've chopped them 2 out. None of them, except for Bradford, are valuable. But what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit, is I'm going to say one who now going to show how valuable he is.
Okay.
And that's Derek Hall.
Thought you might.
Quietly, he's been going about his business game by game. He's been getting better and better and better. And I've noticed it myself because he's a big ass guy and you can't miss him. And he might not get the stats, but he's doing stuff within the line to help other guys out.
He's recorded a lot of pressures as well, which don't show up on the stat sheet, but he is constantly getting there.
Yeah. And that to me just shows it's only a matter of time before he erupts and it clicks in his head, and then he feels comfortable doing his skill set to how the team want him to play. And then I was thinking all this, and then I came across a little video on YouTube with the sleeper of the whole defense, and it was all about Derek Hall, and this guy had snippeted together all these plays where it's like that close from getting a sack, that close from getting a tackle for loss, that close, close.
He's had seven quarterback hits in 7 weeks, 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows a guy who, I mean, they're not quarterback hits if the ball's long gone. They're quarterback hits that weren't flagged because he nearly got there. And if you're that close to hitting the quarterback, you are applying serious pressure. And let's not forget as well that we've been brilliant at containing the run, and he is one of our best edge setters against the run because of his physicality and his size and his nose for the ball. So you're absolutely right. The things he's doing best aren't the things that show up on the stat sheet, but they are enabling everyone else to go to work.
And that's why we loved him in the draft, Mitch. I think it's the one thing that me and you was the first thing that we both agreed that Derek Hall is going to be a beast.
Yeah,
and now,
I think so too.
Now it might be, it's a weird thing to say, but Nwosu going out, leadership-wise, it's saying that doesn't matter because we've got enough like leaders within that line. I think it's a blessing in disguise. I do, honestly. It might not look it, but I genuinely think it could be a blessing in disguise when you look at Derek Hall starting to pick up steam. You've seen the size of the man. He's like a freight train. You don't want a freight train picking up speed and hitting you. So it's only a matter of time. And I think secretly it could be a blessing in disguise for us to unlock these young guys, what historically have their reps limited within this defense. And now it's kind of like we don't have the luxury to limit him. Just take the reins off, let him go.
Yeah, he's eased into it, isn't he? I think Nwosu, I'm not going to say it's a blessing in disguise for Nwosu to go because he's been one of our most consistent performers. I think any team in the league would miss Nwosu going out for the year. But I see that what you mean. It's almost a silver line. The silver lining on that cloud is that there's some talented guys behind him that are ready for the extra snaps. And I think Frank Clark coming in, it helps with the depth. I don't necessarily want to see Frank Clark come in and get starting reps. I want to see him mixed into the rotation. I want to see his experience being allowed to rub off on the rookies. I want to see him in the rotation, but I don't want to see him come in and take Maffei snaps and Hall snaps, and DT snaps. I want to see him in there getting a share, but not taking lion share.
For me personally, with that, because obviously in the main poll we didn't get to speak about the Frank Clark situation, but I think he will get snaps over Derek Hall just because he's a rookie and Frank Clark got the experience. I think he'll share them with DT, but as we spoke about in the main pod, it's perfect because we're coming up to the mid part of the season. Just let Frank Clark have a couple of more games, then let him take the back seat. He can chill out, earn his money, and then DT's ready to go. It's the start of his season.
The interesting thing about Nwosu being replaced by Frank Clark is that Nwosu was getting the lion's share of snaps because they could use him in pass rushing scenarios and use him as an edge setter as well. And Derek Hall was getting more snaps than DT because Derek Hall, whilst he's not as experienced or as effective as Nwosu, had similar strengths and could be utilized in the same sort of roles. And then DT was playing a lot more pass rush scenarios and being used to his strengths. But Frank Clark could come in and take slightly less snaps than Nwosu, and those snaps be given to Hall. because they'll be both expected to do the same jobs. But potentially, with Frank Clark's age being a factor that wasn't there with Nwosu, they might say, okay, well, Derek Hall, we need you to do a bit more of the donkey work and cover more snaps. You wouldn't necessarily put DT on the field for those snaps that Nwosu was doing. So I think we'll see a bit more of those given to Hall. But we'll move on to my pick. My take on this. We are, and a disclaimer, we have been lumping the undrafted guys into the rookie class. I'm going to say Jake Bobo is the most valuable of those players, and I say that because he's not just value to this team as a receiver. He's value to this team in the locker room with his personality. He's become a real favorite with the players, with the fans, with the coaches. And more than anything, he's making plays for people, blocking and setting up screens, and he's doing all the dirty work. And the guy doesn't mind getting hit at 50 miles an hour with helmet first contacts. He gets up smiling. I feel like he could lose an entire row of teeth and get up showing a gappy smile. You know, the guy's an absolute nutcase. And of all the players that have come into this team, other than Spoon, I think he has had the most impact in a starting role on this roster. Jake Bobo. That's my call.
I didn't, because he wasn't a draft pick. I kind of didn't think of it I didn't think I didn't want to say it, but you are completely right with that. I was going to mention something earlier, just whilst you picked him up here, just quickly, just to chuck in there. Everyone's saying more Bobo. But I personally think with some of the limitations this offense has shown, it might not be a bad thing to just get the tight ends more involved. And like James has preached on the main pod, and save Bobo till later in the year, a bit like my Charbonnet thinking. Why show all the teams you potentially could face in the playoffs all your offensive assets? They did it one year with Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin was injured for the start of the year, and everyone was like, where's Doug? Why is he not playing? We're struggling. We're up and down. Where's Doug? My brother's going crazy because Doug Baldwin's not getting any looks. And I was like, save him for the back end of the year when teams have forgot about him. And that pretty much exactly happened. He started getting more targets quietly each week. Why not do that with someone like Bobo? Clearly, Gino has a good connection with him, chucks up balls and trusts that he can get them. Why don't we save an asset like that for later in the season in the playoffs? Because teams then don't have the tape, because even though people know about him, what he can do, teams just love watching tape and building a game plan against tape.
Well, no, I don't think so. But I think nobody's watching the Seahawks wide receiver crew and planning for Bobo. I think everyone's looking at JSN, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. They're looking at those guys first. No one's spending that much time, planning for Bobo. But we've got him on the field all the time. But he's constantly on the field. He's just being used to create pathways for other players. So I agree with your concept. I think you can do that within a game, though. I think you can have him out on the field blocking, running routes, moving people around, and then red zone threat. And then, blocking, rip off 30 yards. You can use him, like you say, sparingly and use him as a surprise weapon, but you can do that within the context of a game, not necessarily save him for the back end. What do you think, James?
I get both points. I get the point of, not wanting to show your hand too quickly, because I do think a fairly untapped Bobo heading into the playoffs and just saying, right now, we're going to unleash you to your full potential is a scary prospect potentially. But then at the same time, if he helps us win regular season games, then I want to see him out there playing football. So I completely understand what Pez is saying. But you've got an ace card there, and it's like, do I play it yet? Do I not? Or do I save it for later or whatever? And it's like, I get it, but then if DK is not quite right, certain circumstances might force our hand early anyway. So I understand where both of you are coming from. I personally will never not be against seeing more Bobo. But I get it. So it's hard to judge, isn't it? And we'll see what they do with him.
Yeah, and I think one of the really cool things about Jake Bobo, if you look back at what we've done with our wide receiver room over the last, well, as long as I can remember, you guys potentially can think back further than I can, but we've always picked up a bargain basement wide receiver 3 or 4 for our roster, whether it's Dorsett or Marquise Goodwin, or who's the lad who played for is it Flash Gordon?
Gordon, Paul Richardson, David Moore, I'm thinking of guys like that.
We've always had someone on the roster who's a sort of a wily vet that'll get 300 yards a year and a couple of touchdowns in the red zone, potentially, an unexpected weapon. What we've got right now is a guy that we picked up as an undrafted free agent that can do far more, that he hasn't got that burner pace that Gordon had or Dorsett had. But what he does have is an extremely wide set of skills. As a wide receiver 4 option, he's so malleable into whatever we want to do, and you can put him out there as a really willing blocker all the time. It's a really different situation for us, and it's seriously cheap as an option. So I'm really pleased with what he's brought to this team, and I think it's given us a different dimension. I think we couldn't have hoped for anything like this in year 1 for Jake Bobo, and it makes me really excited for future seasons. So yeah, Jake Bobo, I think he would be my vote for the most impactful rookie outside the first round picks. But yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this week. That's going to be our 3 sections complete. I really enjoyed this week. I'm really looking forward to next week. I hope we can be talking about some superb performances against the Browns. But yeah, for now, I'm going to say go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
And we'll see you next week for Rookie Watch.